I'm Gary. For 8 years, I could barely play. Now, I'm back.
Welcome to the Parkinson's Project podcast. The Parkinson's Project seeks to erase the stigma associated with Parkinson's disease while empowering and inspiring those dealing with the affliction to live life to the fullest. The Parkinson's Project aspires to build an engaged, supportive community while examining the journey of living with Parkinson's disease through a positive, empowering perspective. Here is your host of the Parkinson's Project podcast, Tim McNiff.
Hello again, everybody. I'm Tim McNiff, and welcome to episode 26 of the Parkinson's Project podcast. The Parkinson's Project podcast, where we seek to engage with anyone who is out there working every day to find a cure, to help others live their best life, or perhaps find a better path for themselves or someone they love. Now, we try to keep our episodes to about 20 to 30 minutes in length, but if we are in the middle of a compelling discussion, we do reserve the right to extend that conversation onto a second episode. And what we want to do is we want to deliver tangible, beneficial content to all of you who engage with us with an end goal of one day putting ourselves out of business when there is no longer a need to talk about PD. And with that, it is my great honor to welcome Chase Babcock to the Parkinson's Project. Let me tell you about Chase. He is the Director of Operations at Rune Labs, where they're bringing precision medicine to neuroscience. Chase oversees the rollout and implementation of Strive PD to movement disorder clinicians and people with Parkinson's all across North America. Prior to joining Rune Labs, Chase served in senior leadership roles over clinical operations within large health systems, most recently leading neuroscience and neurosurgery for Kaiser Permanente, Northern California. In addition to his professional work in U.S.-based hospitals, Chase also spearheads several global health equity initiative efforts in Haiti. He holds a BA in economics and a Master of Health Administration from the University of South Carolina. And if that's not enough, he also knows something about sugarcane distillates, but I've been sworn not to get into that today. Chase Babcock, welcome to the Parkinson's Project.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Great to have you.
Quite the intro.
Well, that's all you. That's not me. I mean, that was the edited down version. I mean, I think with what we're going to talk about today, I have a feeling that we could probably do an episode just on what you do in Haiti.
We probably could. Haiti is a complex and interesting place. We certainly could.
We certainly could. We're not. Where I want to start is, I was doing my homework on you, and I went to the Rune Labs website and expected, because you are such a big shot, to see you featured prominently splashed across the webpage. You know who I saw when I got there? The whole team, the whole Rune Labs team, and under the heading, in alphabetical order, under the heading, the humans behind the platform. And to me, that was really powerful. It was not only a message that said to me that, hey, everybody here matters, and nothing happens without the team. But it made me kind of fall in love with Rune before I knew anything about it. So please fill me in. Tell me about Rune Labs, the vision and the goals.
Yeah, well, you and me both, Tim. Rune Labs is a great place to be. And fortunately for visitors to our website, it's not just a picture of my face on there. We do our best to highlight the folks that build our products, and in the sense that we are patient-centered. We want to be human-centered as well in the way that we talk about our hardworking staff and employees. Rune Labs is a software and data platform company focused on assimilating big sets of clinical human brain data to fuel research and innovation, but also to help the work happening every day in movement disorder clinics and for folks treating neurological disease across the world. We kind of, Tim, take our cues from the oncology space. There have been a couple companies that have been extremely successful in building large cohorts of real oncology patient data. It helps fuel innovation and therapy development. It helps identify new novel treatments for different cancer types. But then an oncologist working in a clinic every day, taking care of cancer patients, is also impacted by that work because they have access to data and information they didn't before. So if you're an oncologist in a clinic, you now can understand certain types of tumors and different patient phenotypes. And we know that in the neurological disease space that this same paradigm is unfortunately not the case. Most of the treatment protocols for neurological diseases like Parkinson's are built on rather incomplete models from rats and mice. And so big picture, Rune Labs wants to build big clinical human brain data sets to develop and help therapy developers find new therapies. And to your point in your opening about your podcast, potentially, hopefully, a disease-modifying therapy that prevents things like Parkinson's disease. But on the front end at Rune Labs, we also want to impact the work of neurologists and people living with Parkinson's disease every day. So it's a two-sided marketplace for us where we're passionate and excited about fueling innovation and therapy development, but also the day-to-day routine care that's happening across the country.
And we're to get into the sort of the driving factors behind that sort of two-pronged approach that you're talking about. I want to go back to you for a moment. I did go over the bio going in, but can you kind of talk about the path that led you to your current role at Rune Labs?
Yeah, sure. I would love to. So as you mentioned, I studied economics and was working in investment and private equity for a few years. And, it really just wasn't speaking to a more purpose-driven career that I was hoping for. You mentioned a little bit about me at the beginning, Tim, that grew up with my father leading nonprofit work, public health focused in Haiti. And so I've been fortunate enough to see the impact of a robust and thorough healthcare system in a community. And so there was a piece of my career where I decided to go back to graduate school and take that excitement and passion for public health and learn about the U.S. healthcare system. So got a master's degree in public health and hospital administration, and spent the better part of a decade working in leadership roles in acute care facilities and big medical groups. The last 5 years of which was lucky to lead neuroscience and neurosurgery, neurology for a large integrated delivery system here in California, and was able to lead alongside some really passionate and incredible clinicians, treating folks with everything from epilepsy and stroke, but to movement disorders like essential tremor and Parkinson's disease. So have a good sense of what it looks like to run a very busy program in a healthcare setting. And I'm lucky enough to be now bringing that experience to Rune Labs, where I help roll out our digital health platform, which we'll talk a little bit about today, Strive PD, and really helping my team at Rune Labs understand what doctors need and what folks living with Parkinson's disease need as it relates to a digital solution.
You have that interesting background that kind of weaves together to lead you to where you are right now. I'm just wondering, Rune Labs, were they looking for you or were you looking for them? How did that all come about?
I think it was a mutually beneficial search. I had actually was on some paternity leave, so I was home with a new baby. And like many of us working in the hospitals, my wife, also an ICU nurse, had a tough couple years with the pandemic, and so thought in the back of my mind that it might be time for a change. And fortuitously, Rune Labs was looking for somebody with the expertise of understanding health systems and what neurologists and neurosurgeons care about when they think about novel solutions for things like Parkinson's disease. So it really felt like a match made in heaven. So here I am.
Fabulous story. So you've mentioned a couple times, we've kind of danced around. I mentioned on the way in something called Strive PD. And my question was really going to be about, well, what are you guys doing right now to bring the sort of innovation that you were talking about a couple of minutes ago to the treatment of PD, like right now? And is that the thing right now, or is that just one of the things you guys have happening at Rune?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've got a number of things going on, although, we're most excited about Strive PD. It's our kind of first clinical indication that we're focused on, Parkinson's disease. It's our first kind of commercial product. Strive PD is a digital health platform that lives on the Apple ecosystem, which just means that it's on the iPhone and the Apple Watch. And so folks living with Parkinson's disease can use Strive PD to engage in their symptom management and track their symptoms, their on and off periods. And I think, Tim, as we think about innovation, in June of this year, we secured FDA clearance on our software. on the Apple Watch, which means that it's a validated measure of tremor and dyskinesia. So folks with those symptoms, those Parkinsonian tremors, can now track and quantify those symptoms using the Apple Watch and our software Strive PD. So Strive PD very much over the next, I think, 12 to 18 months is an area that we're really excited about. We have some strategic partnerships you and I will touch on in a minute, I'm sure. But really building out that app experience for folks living with Parkinson's disease and empowering them to engage in symptom management on the platform is where we're focused.
So in practical application, someone has the Apple Watch, they have the technology, and what does that information regarding their tremors or dyskinesia, what is the benefit? What are they getting out of that?
Yeah, so we know that folks living with Parkinson's disease oftentimes have a difficult time quantifying their what might be considered or called on or off periods. These periods of time where if they do have a tremor dominant Parkinson's, may be more difficult or more impactful to their day. It can be tough for them to quantify these periods of time and maybe even remember them when they fast forward 6 months and are meeting with their neurologist. So the first piece is just empowering folks with information. The other piece, Tim, is delineating between tremor and dyskinesia. So we know that sometimes these symptoms can be tough to tell apart when you're experiencing them yourself. And so by both quantifying and differentiating between tremor and dyskinesia and reporting it back to the user on the app, they're empowered to kind of call out the periods of their day where they are experiencing these symptoms more significantly. The app also engages users in some what are considered patient-reported outcomes. These are things that a user logs themselves, anything from a medication schedule to an activity like took a yoga class or had a high-protein meal. By doing this, it allows users to better understand the impact of a behavioral change or a medication change on their symptoms. So they may find that their tremor is better controlled on a day that they take a hike versus a day that they binge some Netflix. And so Strive PD helps them engage in their symptom management in that way.
It's fabulous. In a previous conversation, you talked about how Strive PD started and sort of the people who are, authentic and using it and giving you feedback,
Yeah.
and how so I was really moved by that.
Sure, yeah. So Strive PD was actually originally built and designed by a person living with Parkinson's disease. I think actually her father was impacted by Parkinson's disease, and then later on she had a diagnosis herself. She was kind of frustrated with the lack of options for logging medications and keeping track of those kind of motor symptoms I mentioned, those on and off periods. And so she built Strive PD, designed it with a person living with Parkinson's disease in mind in terms of design and layout. And that original builder and designer actually still sits on our patient advisory board. So Rune Labs has a patient advisory board. It's a group of folks living with Parkinson's disease that guide a lot of our design decisions, some of the strategic decisions about what to include in future versions of the app. The patient advisory board is very helpful there. They hold our feet to the fire to make sure that we don't make the buttons too small, and have brought some really fantastic features to the table, like encouraging us to consider voice logging. So folks using Strive PD can log their symptoms and their medications by voice, particularly for folks whose tremor is more troublesome, makes navigating a smaller screen difficult. So really proud of the patient advisory board. I think we may be one of the few Silicon Valley startups that's got a patient advisory board guiding our decisions, but we're privileged to have them.
I think it would make the whole process very effective. It sounds very promising. Is there a particular patient profile for Strive PD?
Yeah, it's a good question. There are several places in the continuum that we are really excited about for folks to interact with Strive PD. First, of course, the maybe earlier stage, more recent diagnosis. All of the features I mentioned already, we think are really empowering for folks living with Parkinson's disease. So we have a number of folks that we meet via patient support groups or various fitness-focused classes and foundations. We know that using the app to log their medications and keep track of those on and off periods, and then, of course, the passive measurement of tremor and dyskinesia from the watch can be really helpful, particularly folks that are just learning what it looks like to live with Parkinson's disease. as folks' disease progress and they move on to first and second line therapies, and maybe even consider deep brain stimulation as a potential therapy for their Parkinson's disease, our platform connects with Medtronic's deep brain stimulators. And so we're able to ingest data from the Medtronic device, and we think add additional value to the patient experience as they not only get the information coming off the Apple Watch, but then have access to information coming off the implant itself. So really, wherever you are in the continuum, Tim, of living with Parkinson's disease, we think that there's a version of Strive PD that can be helpful.
I'm Robert. For 5 years, I couldn't turn a screwdriver. Now, I have some work to do.
You beat me to the punch. You're talking about Medtronic, and they've got DBS, and obviously a very innovative process, and improving all the time. This technology that you got is not, it's not limited to a DBS application. I mean, Medtronic's got a number of things that you're working with in this process. Is that correct?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, folks that are kind of in the earlier stages of their disease progression can obviously use Strive PD and the features there. And then if DBS is in fact an option for them, the Medtronic device called the Percept has got some really fantastic technology. It's exclusive just to their devices. And to put it simply, Tim, it reads brain signals, which we know in the industry are called local field potentials. And we understand and we know that there's a relationship in what we can learn from local field potentials and motor symptoms. So by marrying the brain data coming off of the Medtronic device and the technology from the Apple Watch on Strive PD, we give just additional value to the patient who's trying to better understand their symptom management. And we illustrate it for clinicians so that both patient and clinician together can view their data in one place and start to understand the potential relationship between what's happening in the brain and what they're experiencing in their daily lives.
If someone's hearing this content and they're getting excited about the potential of this, where do they go to find out more about it, how they can maybe get started with it?
Yeah, great question. So you could visit our website would be kind of the first place to start, or to look for the app in the Apple App Store. The app, again, is called Strive PD. Or our website you can visit is strive.group. Strive.group will drive you to a number of different resources. We've got some great animated videos on there to tell you about the platform and kind of an introductory lesson on local field potential and what deep brain stimulator therapy might look like for you.
Does this process of using this feedback help people make that decision even before they get to their healthcare provider, or is this something that they share that information with their provider, walking in and saying, "Hey, this is what we have," or does a provider getting this information in advance of a patient's visit?
Yeah, great question. So we take a number of different approaches. We've got several hundred folks already using the platform that have not connected us with their physician. They see value in using the platform themselves and are using it just to manage their symptoms day to day. But we do work with a good number of physicians and medical centers across the U.S. We're just at about 100 medical sites across the U.S. As of right now. And those are clinicians using Strive PD every day. They're opening the software and reviewing their patient's data. Because the data collected on the watch and the phone is uploaded to the cloud through Wi-Fi, Tim, the symptom data is actually viewable remotely by the doctor. So clinicians have the ability to see their patient's data and understand what's going on in their life in terms of tremor and dyskinesia, medication adherence, any difficult or maybe optimal days. The clinician has the ability to view that remotely. At the time of a more routine visit, when the patient is in clinic, they can review the data together. And if they do have a Medtronic Percept device, the two of them can review their brain data together. It's really the only time and place in the world that you can do that is with a Medtronic Percept device and Strive PD.
How did that, does the relationship predate your arrival at Rune, or is that something that has formed as a result of your time being in your position?
Yeah, it actually does predate me. Interestingly enough, my time at the hospital system I was at before Rune Labs were utilizers of Medtronic's Percept system. So I was familiar with the technology and all that it can do for patients with Parkinson's disease. It's been a kind of a long running relationship between Rune Labs and Medtronic. This local field potential data I've mentioned, the ability to sense what's going on in the brain is unique to Medtronic. They're the only med tech company that makes a DBS device that offers this feature. And at Rune Labs, as I mentioned, the oncology example, we're really excited about taking data that might otherwise be discarded and unused and marrying it with things like patient-reported outcomes and measurements from the Apple Watch. By combining those two things together, we have an internal team of neuroscientists. We're excited about our ability to identify potential new learnings in the world of Parkinson's disease and to enable therapy developers to use our platform to develop novel therapies and hopefully, like I said, disease-modifying drugs for things like Parkinson's disease.
My entry into this podcast was really my entry into the world of Parkinson's. I knew literally nothing about it other than Michael J. Fox before this whole experience was
Sure.
brought to my attention. It's been just a learning experience for me. One of the most common complaints I have heard from people in the community is that they just don't feel that the research that has either been coordinated or it has not kept up with what's happening in some other areas. And I feel like with what you're doing here, you mentioned it earlier, you're taking things that you're seeing be successful in other areas and applying it now in maybe ways that it has not been applied previously. Is that fair?
I think it is fair. Yeah, that's very much been the vision of Rune Labs. Before Strive PD was available in a commercial application in the App Store and in the Apple Watch, we were very research focused. So we still maintain a number of research partnerships across the country with some fantastic academic institutions that use the Medtronic device to understand what's going on in the individual's brain. And so we've been able to build a platform for those institutions to conduct research. So we very much think that this world of precision neurology is something that should exist. We know that it exists in the world of oncology, and we think there's tremendous opportunity to drive innovation and optimize outcomes and hopefully one day prevent and cure things like Parkinson's disease.
I always want people who come in contact with our content, not trying to be Pollyanna about this or anything, but just to look for a positive, something that's, going forward. What can they be excited about? So I really feel like everything that you've talked about has been sort of this forward looking. And I guess as we kind of get set to put a bow on 2022 and look ahead to 2023, you have to be very excited about the direction you're going and the partnerships that you've formed, and ultimately the potential for positive outcomes for the people who have PD. Am I putting words in your mouth, or am I leading you in the right direction?
Yeah, no, you're leading me in the right direction. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've mentioned Medtronic a good bit. The partnership there, we're very excited about continuing to bring Strive PD to more folks living with Parkinson's disease, whether that's early on in their journey or as they make a decision about deep brain stimulation therapy. The data that we can get off those devices and learn, and the therapy developer partnerships we're striking now to run really meaningful research on that data set is something that we're all really, really, really pumped about.
You should be too. All right. I always want our podcast to offer something to our followers of a call to action, something that they can do right now to improve themselves, their life going forward. If you had the call to make, what would be your CTA for somebody listening to this podcast? What could they do that could maybe help them in their situation right now?
Yeah. So I think maybe two things, if I can.
Absolutely.
First, I would imagine most of your listeners, Tim, have done this, but I would encourage folks living with Parkinson's disease to get involved in a support group. That's oftentimes the first step for many folks. But if you haven't yet, I would encourage you to find a group, whether it's local or something virtual or national, to engage with folks that might have similar questions and concerns that you do. And then secondly, second call to action would be to if you're on an Apple device, download Strive PD. It's free to use in the Apple App Store. If you have an iPhone or an Apple Watch, you can use it and start tracking your medications, your on and off periods, The app will email you a report of your tremor and dyskinesia. If you wear the watch to bed, we can give you a sleep analysis. You can share all of that with your clinician, and potentially one day your neurologist might actually be a Strive PD center, and you'll get to view that data together in your routine visits. But I think starting with the app is a good place to go.
I mean, and all this is available for free to the user.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, Merry Christmas to yourself, right? I mean, do this for yourself before the year is over. What would be the downside?
Yeah, absolutely.
You are the best. Chase Babcock is the Director of Operations for Rune Laboratories in San Francisco, where they're bringing precision medicine to neuroscience. Chase, seriously, thank you for this opportunity, for the outstanding work that you and your team of humans behind the technology is doing on behalf of all folks with neurological disorders. And of course, happy holidays. Be well. And we hope to see you in 2023 and beyond.
Likewise. Thanks, Tim.
All right. Thank you. All right. Chase Babcock, there you have it. Parkinson's Project, of course, is a place where we are seeking to become a place where you can come for a range of information about PD and to find support for yourself or perhaps for a loved one. Now, we encourage you to check us out on Facebook at the Parkinson's Project. You can also find the Parkinson's Project podcast wherever you find your favorite podcast. Check us out and rate us so we can grow and to continue to give support in the ongoing effort to eradicate this affliction and put ourselves out of business once and for all. This has been the Parkinson's Project podcast for executive producer Pat Farcia. I'm Tim McNiff. I want to thank you for joining us as we look forward to meeting and working with all of you as we seek to build a loving, supportive, and empowering community through all aspects of the Parkinson's Project and the Parkinson's Project podcast.
Thank you for engaging with the Parkinson's Project podcast. Be sure to look for more content on the Parkinson's Project Facebook page, and we'll see you right here on the next edition of the Parkinson's Project podcast.